A while ago, I made a video talking about the dark direction of Dino Thunder and the way that Disney were going to go. And I still think it's a way that should be explored. Now, when I wrote this was probably months and months ago. And obviously we've had Once and Always, which was a darker tone, which I think literally suited the aesthetics of Power Rangers and how it should be, compared to what Hasbro are thinking at the moment, thinking that the younger audience is the way to go, when clearly it's the adult audience you really want to go for because they're the ones that are keeping it alive. Yep, that's right. Anyway, let's talk about this. I generally really think that Disney knew what they were doing when it came to the show. I think that they had looked at it all previously and gone, this is not working. And even though that Saban kind of started to move forward and kind of produce the darker tone series, which we've seen in, say, like Time Force, Wild Force to some degree, the first part of it at least maybe, and other seasons, I now generally think that Disney knew exactly what they wanted to do and how they were going to go about it. It would make kind of perfect sense to go down the darker route because you've got to mature your TV shows. You've got to make it sure that it grows with the audience. We've seen this with shows, and I will always say this. The Flash is a very good example of the first couple of seasons until it changed. But there are lots of people that saying that they were watching this with their kids because they grew up with The Flash and this was the best way to kind of do it. And I do generally think that if you have a darker tone, it works absolutely better than anything, and it keeps both audiences happy. Like, you don't have to go full on really bad for what it is, but when you look at Super Sentai and stuff like that, you can tell that that's slightly darker tone, even though the TV regulations are going to be completely different. So it kind of gets you thinking, why is it now that we're sticking at the same thing compared to what Disney were literally experimenting with and actually producing it? Look at Dino Thunder, look at RPM. Darker seasons than what they are normally, and they were generally thinking of every audience rather than kids. I sometimes like the Disney era, sometimes I don't. It depends on which season that I'm watching. But I generally kind of think that Disney were trying to make Power Rangers mainstream. And I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, Power Rangers should never be mainstream. It should die and it should stop where it is and it will never be a thing anymore. And there's me thinking, really? Like, why should it stay in one thing? It needs to be mainstream for it to become popular again. More toys get bought, more shows get watched, more money that Hasbro look and go, dear God, this is making us more money. So we can put this money into it and make a better season. I don't know why all of a sudden everyone says like, nah, it doesn't need to be mainstream. If you don't think Power Rangers needs to be mainstream, please let me know down below in the comments and maybe I'll do a follow-up video. I generally wish that after Saban bought it back, that he kept up this element of, hey, let's just do what Disney was going to do, because that would work 10 times better than anything in my eyes. I feel like he decided, hey, we're going to go back to the old school ways of, oh, this is just for kids, and, you know, that's what sells. Because at the very end of the day, I think back in the day, yeah, like we had never seen anything like this with Power Rangers with Mighty Morphin. And yeah, we as kids wanted to buy it. Now when you walk down any like kind of toy aisle, mainly in America because the UK has like literally nothing. I think the UK only has like a small shelf, or from the town that I'm from, has like a small shelf of just Power Ranger stuff. And compared to other brands and stuff like that, I generally think that Power Rangers is slowly being phased out because A, maybe the toys aren't that great. B, the toys are way expensive. Too expensive, way expensive. You get what I mean. But when I kind of look at stuff like in America, when people go down the toy aisles and there's hardly any Power Ranger stuff, it makes me kind of think, who is actually buying this? Because I guarantee when you look at like the Lightning Collection sales, majority of adults who are buying it because they want to do it. You've got like the Alien Rangers, which a kid would want to spend around about almost £120 or $120 for toys that will get lost. It's something that you kind of think. Now, personally, I just generally think it's more of the audience that grew up with the show. They'll want to help keep supporting it because these are the toys that we've always wanted. So again, I don't know why, in theory, like Hasbro are still going, oh, this is for the younger demographic. Because at the end of the day, the demographic are people that grew up with the show. We all know that Disney just didn't give a shit about the brand anymore. They wanted it to die. They didn't care, and that's the reason why RPM came along. They wanted to go, hey, just do this, we're not that arsed. And you can kind of see it, because in theory, you're meant to be going like, oh, I really want this to continue. Like, we want to make this brand the best that we can. We want to make sure that everyone gets in on this. And they just didn't give a shit. And it's really, really sad, because I think their way, even though that many people don't like most of the Disney era, I think their way moving forward was the way that we needed. And again, it would have been absolutely perfect if they kept this kind of more darker tone to kind of bring people in. Again, if it was that bad, those seasons would never have come out. And we know that Disney, everyone in the world is more kid orientated than ever. Now, I'm not going to say that Disney was going to be the best way that they could be. But if you think about it, Bandai also probably just didn't give a shit about the toys anymore. They couldn't be bothered, because you could see it in their products. You were paying a high price for a product that was absolutely shit. Guarantee, go look at the Samuraiser phone. Go look at any of the stuff that came out for Super Mega Force. The toys weren't great. The keys couldn't be bothered. And like, when you kind of look back at all that like stuff, when I spoke Bandai at the time, I think they just didn't care. I think that they wanted lots of money. They wanted the whole, hey, let's make these figures beefcakes, or let's make these female figures, ones with big breasts. It was stuff that over time they just didn't give a shit about, and they were just pumping it out because fuck it, why not? That's the thing. But I generally think Bandai are to kind of blame, because they lost their way. They made amazing toys back in the 90s, but kind of moving forward, they just gave up. I kind of really want to know how Disney were going to do a more serious tone for other seasons. Had they kept the brand all the way up to now, how were they going to adapt? Obviously, they would have changed some of the season names, but how would they have made this more darker tone, a more serious tone for all of us? I generally kind of think deep down that they did have a good way. And I think in some way Hasbro now, even though that Simon has turned around and said, hey, guess what? This is, this is for the 4-year-olds and stuff like that. When you look at the seasons and the way that the show is right now, I generally think it is aimed for the more like the older fan, but not like the older fans. Like, it's there for you to watch. Like, you could watch it and not get bored like they do with, say, SpongeBob, or with like Adventure Time when that was on, etc, etc. I think there's tons of stuff there. But in theory, I just want to know more about a serious tone. I do think Hasbro are producing that right now, and I would love them to take more of a serious tone going forward, either it be in Cosmic Fury Season 2 or whatever they want to do. I want the Jonathan Entwistle one to be a bit more darker, not just the whole, this is for kids. And if that does work, guarantee Hasbro have been looking at this the entirely wrong way. At the end of the day, I know Saban messed this up. He didn't care when buying it back. The fact that he sold it in the first place showed that he didn't give a shit. And then seeing that he could buy it back for cheap, again, he didn't care, because look at this season, how it went after that. In general, to me personally, I think he messed it up. And I think that most fans would agree with that as well. So I generally kind of think that if Disney still had control of it right now, yeah, we'd be in a darker tone series. I generally would love that. But, so what are your thoughts? Would you prefer a serious tone, a darker tone, or are you absolutely fine from when obviously Saban bought it back to now how Hasbro is handling it? Let me know down below in the comments, and I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out the memberships, then please do so. Helps the channel grow. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help does go a long way to support the channel. And if you want to consider helping the channel, then links to my Patreon as well as the channel members are listed below.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。